was standing in the hallway of my mother's house, holding a tray of deviled eggs when I heard my sister tell 12 people that I was the reason her life had fallen apart. My name is Jennifer Russo, and at 47, I thought I'd built something resembling a functional family. I'm a CPA in Portland, Oregon, the kind of person who color codes her file folders and arrives to meetings 10 minutes early. My life is organized, predictable, comfortable in its routine. I own a small craftsman house in the Hawthorne district, with a garden I actually tend. I have a golden retriever named Butter who greets me at the door every evening, like I've been gone for years instead of hours. I'm not married, never wanted to be, and I've built a life that feels whole without needing someone else to complete it. My sister Melissa is 3 years younger than me, and we've always had what I thought was a close relationship. She's an artist, the creative one in the family, with her paint-stained genes and her tendency to lose track of time when she's working on a canvas. She lives in a loft apartment in the Pearl District, the kind of space with exposed brick and huge windows that flood everything with light. She teaches art classes at a community center and sells her paintings at local galleries, living that bohemian lifestyle that our parents never quite understood, but I'd always admired. Or at least that's what everyone thought her life looked like. The truth was more complicated. The truth was that Melissa's art barely sold. The truth was that her teaching job paid minimum wage. The truth was that her beautiful loft with the perfect light cost $2,000 a month and she couldn't afford it. The truth was that for the past 6 years, I'd been paying her rent. It started small. She'd called me in tears one night, saying she was short on rent and was going to be evicted. Could I loan her $500 just until her next paycheck? Of course I could. She was my baby sister. That's what family did. Then it happened again the next month and the month after that. Eventually, we stopped calling them loans and I just started paying her landlord directly. $1,200 a month, every month, transferred from my account to his without Melissa ever having to ask. She knew, obviously. We'd had the conversation once, sitting in her loft, drinking wine while the sun set over the city. "Jen, I can't keep letting you do this," she'd said, her eyes wet with tears. "It's too much. You're supporting me like I'm a child. You're not a child. You're my sister, and you're working hard. The art world is tough. You just need time to build your career. But 6 years, Jen, 6 years of you paying my rent. How am I ever supposed to pay you back? I don't want you to pay me back. I want you to be safe and happy and able to focus on your art without worrying about being homeless. That's payment enough." She'd hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, whispering thank you over and over into my shoulder. After that, we didn't talk about it. The money appeared in her landlord's account every month, and Melissa focused on her painting. And I told myself I was doing a good thing, that this was what love looked like, sacrifice without expectation of return. But we'd agreed on one thing. No one else could know. Not our parents, not our friends, not anyone. Melissa's pride couldn't handle people knowing she needed help, and I understood that. I respected it. So when people asked how Melissa afforded her beautiful loft on a teacher's salary, she'd smile mysteriously and say something about having a good landlord who gave her a deal. And I'd nod along, keeping her secret, protecting her dignity. That's why I was so shocked when I heard her talking about me like I was the villain in her story. It was Thanksgiving, and we were at our mother's house in Beaverton, that sprawling ranch-style place where we'd grown up. The kitchen smelled like turkey and sage, and the house was full of relatives I only saw once or twice a year. Aunts and uncles and cousins, all gathered around the dining room table that had been extended with 2 extra leaves to accommodate everyone. I'd volunteered to help with the food, anything to avoid the small talk in the living room. I'd made 3 dozen deviled eggs, my signature dish, the one thing everyone always requested. I was carrying them from the kitchen to the dining room when I heard Melissa's voice coming from the den, that small room off the hallway where my father used to watch football. I'm serious, you guys. Jennifer has controlled every aspect of my life since we were kids. She's the reason I can't move forward. I froze, the tray heavy in my hands. "What do you mean?" That was our cousin Amy, her voice curious but sympathetic. "She has this need to be the hero, you know, the responsible one, the one who has it all together. And she needs me to be the mess so she can feel superior." My hands started shaking. The eggs wobbled on the tray. "That seems harsh," someone else said. I couldn't identify the voice. It's true, though. Growing up, she was always the perfect daughter. Perfect grades, perfect behavior, perfect everything. And I was the screw-up, the one who couldn't get it together. And instead of letting me figure things out on my own, she always swooped in to save me. Always had to be the hero. But isn't that what sisters do? Amy again. Help each other? There's helping, and then there's enabling. Jennifer enables me. She makes it so I never have to face real consequences. And then she holds it over my head. Makes me feel guilty for not being more like her. I felt like I'd been slapped. Holds it over her head? I'd never once mentioned the rent to anyone. I'd never made her feel bad about it. Had I? I mean, I'm 44 years old and I still feel like I'm living in her shadow. Like everything I do is measured against what Jennifer would do, how Jennifer would handle it. What Jennifer thinks is the right choice. It's suffocating. So what are you going to do about it? A male voice this time. Our cousin's husband, maybe. I don't know. I've been thinking about moving, getting out of Portland, starting fresh somewhere she can't follow me. Maybe then I could finally figure out who I am without her constantly hovering. Would she even let you go? Melissa laughed, but it was bitter. That's the thing. She probably wouldn't try to stop me. She'd just make it clear how much she disapproved, how I was making a mistake, how I needed her, and I'd end up staying because the guilt would eat me alive. That's manipulative. That's Jennifer. She's been manipulating me my whole life, and she's so good at it that she's convinced everyone, including herself, that she's just being helpful. But really, she's ruined my life. She's made it so I can't stand on my own 2 feet, and I resent her for it. The tray slipped from my hands. 12 deviled eggs hit the hardwood floor with a wet splat, yolk and paprika spreading across the wood like a crime scene. The conversation in the den stopped immediately. What was that? Melissa's voice, sharp with concern. I stood there staring at the mess, my mind completely blank. Ruined her life. She resented me. I was manipulative, controlling, suffocating. I heard footsteps, and then Melissa appeared in the hallway, her face going pale when she saw me standing there covered in egg. Jen, how long have you been? Long enough. We stared at each other across the hallway, the ruins of my deviled eggs between us like a physical manifestation of our relationship. I can explain, she started, but I held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed paper towels, and started cleaning up the egg. Melissa hovered near me, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't figure out what to say. The cousins had emerged from the den, watching the scene with the horrified fascination of people witnessing a car crash. Jen, please. You didn't mean for me to hear it. That's different than not meaning it. No, that's not what Melissa, I looked up at her, paper towels full of egg in my hands. Do you know how much money I've given you over the past 6 years? Her face went white. Jen, don't. $72,000, that's how much. $1,200 a month for 6 years. $72,000 so you could live in that loft and focus on your art and not have to worry about rent. The silence in the hallway was absolute. I could feel everyone staring, could hear the sharp intake of breath from our mother in the kitchen doorway. You've been paying her rent? My mother asked, her voice high with shock. For 6 years, I confirmed. Every month, without fail, because she's my sister and I love her and I wanted to help her. Melissa's face was red now, tears streaming down her cheeks. You promised you wouldn't tell anyone, and you promised you were grateful. Guess we're both liars. I stood up, threw the paper towels in the trash, and walked past everyone to get my coat from the closet. Jennifer, where are you going? My mother's voice, panicked now. Home. I'm going home. But we haven't even eaten yet. It's Thanksgiving. I've lost my appetite. Melissa grabbed my arm as I reached the door. Jen, please, don't leave like this. Let me explain. I looked at her, really looked at her. My baby sister, whom I'd protected and supported and loved with everything I had. My baby sister, who apparently saw all of that as manipulation and control. You want to be free of me? Congratulations, you are. I'll stop the rent payments tomorrow. You can figure out how to pay for that loft on your own. Consider it my Thanksgiving gift to you. Jen, you don't mean that. I absolutely mean that. You're right about one thing, Melissa. I've been enabling you. I've been making it so you don't have to face real consequences. Well, that stops now. You want to stand on your own 2 feet? Here's your chance. I pulled my arm free and walked out, leaving her standing in the doorway crying while our entire family watched. The drive home was a blur. I don't remember getting in my car, don't remember navigating the streets of Beaverton back to Portland. I just remember sitting in my driveway, staring at my house and thinking about everything Melissa had said. Was she right? Had I been controlling? Had I been manipulative? Had I been using her struggles to make myself feel superior? I thought about all the times I'd helped her, not just the rent, but everything. I'd co-signed her car loan when her credit was bad. I'd paid for her dental work when she couldn't afford it. I'd bought her art supplies for Christmas and birthdays because I knew she needed them but was too proud to ask. I'd shown up at her apartment with groceries when I knew her fridge was empty. I'd been there for every crisis, every emergency, every moment when she needed someone. And all of that, in her mind, was suffocating control. Butter greeted me at the door, his tail wagging so hard his whole body moved. I sank down on the floor and buried my face in his fur, finally letting myself cry. My phone started ringing. Melissa. I ignored it. It rang again. My mother. Ignored. Text messages started flooding in, but I turned off my phone and sat in the dark with my dog, wondering how I'd gotten everything so wrong. Eventually, I got up and made myself tea, sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop, pulled up my bank account, and looked at the recurring payment I'd set up 6 years ago. $1,200, auto-transferred on the 1st of every month to Melissa's landlord. I canceled it. Just like that, with 3 clicks, I ended 6 years of support. $72,000 in sacrifice, in love, in what I thought was sisterhood. gone. I thought I'd feel relieved, freed from the burden of supporting someone who apparently resented me for it. But instead, I just felt hollow. The next morning, I woke up to 43 missed calls and 78 text messages. Most were from Melissa, escalating from apologetic to desperate to angry. A few were from my mother, asking me to reconsider, to think about family, to not make rash decisions. One was from my father, short and to the point. Call your sister. I deleted them all without reading most of them. Instead, I went to work, buried myself in tax returns and financial statements, the comforting predictability of numbers that always added up correctly. My assistant asked if I was okay. Apparently, I looked like I'd been crying, which I had, and I told her I was fine. Just family drama, nothing serious, but it was serious. It was the most serious thing that had happened to me in years, because Melissa wasn't wrong about everything. I did get something out of helping her. I did feel good about being the responsible one, the one with her life together, the one who could swoop in and save the day. I'd built my identity around being reliable, capable, the person people could count on. And maybe somewhere along the way, I'd needed Melissa to be the mess so I could be the hero. That realization sat in my stomach like a stone. On the third day after Thanksgiving, Melissa showed up at my office. My assistant tried to stop her, but Melissa pushed past and walked into my office like she owned the place. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. I looked up from the spreadsheet I'd been pretending to focus on. "I don't think we do." "Jen, please. I'm sorry. I was venting. I was frustrated and I said things I didn't mean." "Which part didn't you mean? The part where I ruined your life? The part where I'm manipulative? The part where you resent me?" She sank into the chair across from my desk. "All of it. None of it. I don't know. It's complicated. Uncomplicated for me." She was quiet for a long moment, picking at a thread on her jeans. "Do you know what it's like to be 44 years old and still need your sister to pay your rent? Do you know what it's like to spend $72,000 supporting your sister only to find out she thinks you're controlling and manipulative? That's not fair. None of this is fair, Melissa. I thought I was helping you. I thought I was being a good sister, but apparently I was suffocating you. You were helping me. You were being a good sister, but Jen, sometimes good intentions can still hurt. Sometimes helping someone can make them feel small. Then you should have told me. You should have said something instead of smiling to my face and then complaining about me behind my back." "I tried. I told you I felt bad about the money, that I felt like I couldn't pay you back, and you just said you didn't want me to pay you back. You made it seem like the conversation was over." "Because I didn't want you to pay me back. I wanted you to be okay. But don't you see, by making it seem like the money didn't matter, like it wasn't a big deal, you made it impossible for me to have any agency in our relationship. You turned me into this charity case who had to just accept your generosity and be grateful and never question it." I stared at her, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath me. "I never meant to make you feel that way. I know you didn't. That's what makes it so hard. You genuinely thought you were helping, and you were helping, but you were also making it so that our entire relationship was built on me needing you, and I didn't know how to break out of that without losing you. So instead, you told our entire family that I ruined your life." She flinched. "I shouldn't have said that. It was cruel and it wasn't true. You didn't ruin my life, Jen. You saved it in a lot of ways, but you also made it harder for me to save myself." We sat in silence, the weight of 6 years of unspoken resentment and gratitude and love and pain hanging between us. "What do you want from me?" I asked finally. "I want us to figure out how to be sisters without you being my savior. I want to pay my own rent, even if it means moving to a smaller place. I want to know that you love me because of who I am, not because you get to feel good about helping me. I do love you because of who you are. Then prove it. Let me struggle. Let me figure things out. Let me fail if I need to fail. Stop trying to save me from everything. And if you end up homeless, then I'll figure it out. That's what adults do." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was being naive, that the world was harsh and unforgiving, that she needed help whether she wanted to admit it or not. But I bit my tongue, because that's exactly what she was talking about. That need I had to be right, to be the one who knew better, to be the hero. "Okay," I said finally. "No more rent money. You're on your own." "Okay," she echoed, and I saw relief mixed with terror on her face. She stood up to leave, then paused at the door. "Jen, thank you for everything, for the 6 years, for the money, for caring enough to help me even when I didn't appreciate it the way I should have. I know you sacrificed a lot for me." "You're welcome." After she left, I sat in my office and cried for the second time that week. Not because I was sad exactly, but because something fundamental had shifted in my understanding of myself and my relationship with my sister. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had been using her struggles to feel good about myself. Maybe I had been preventing her from growing by always being there to catch her when she fell. Or maybe she was wrong, and I'd just been a good sister trying to help, and she was too proud to accept it gracefully. Probably the truth was somewhere in the middle. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as Melissa figured things out. She took on extra classes at the community center. She started selling prints of her paintings online. She got a weekend job at a coffee shop and she moved, not out of state like she'd threatened on Thanksgiving, but to a smaller apartment in Southeast Portland. 1 bedroom instead of a loft, normal windows instead of those dramatic floor-to-ceiling panes, $750 a month instead of $2,000. She didn't ask for help with the move, didn't ask for money for the deposit, just posted on social media about her new place and thanked her friends for helping her pack. I wasn't invited. Christmas came and went. We were both at my mother's house, but we barely spoke. Polite exchanges, surface-level conversation, the kind of interaction you have with distant relatives, not sisters. My mother pulled me aside while Melissa was in the bathroom. "You need to fix this." "I don't know how, Mom. She doesn't want me in her life." "That's not true. She's just trying to figure out who she is without depending on you. Give her space. Give her time." "How much time?" "As much as she needs." But I wasn't good at waiting. I wasn't good at not helping. So I did something I'm not proud of. I started checking up on her. I told myself it was just concern, that I was only making sure she was okay, that she wasn't drowning without my help. But really, I was looking for proof that she needed me, that she couldn't make it without me, that I'd been right all along. I drove past her new apartment building twice a week, checking to see if her car was there, if her lights were on. I followed her on social media under a fake account so I could see her posts without her knowing I was watching. I asked mutual friends casual questions about how she was doing, always framing it as sisterly concern rather than surveillance. And what I found surprised me. She was doing okay. Not great, not thriving, but surviving. She was working 3 jobs and complaining about being tired. She was posting pictures of her tiny apartment with captions about how cozy it was. She was selling paintings, not a lot, but enough to supplement her income. She was making it work. Without me, that should have made me happy, should have made me proud. Instead, it made me feel obsolete. Because if Melissa didn't need me, what was my role in her life? If I wasn't the helper, the supporter, the one who made things possible, then who was I to her? It was my therapist who finally called me out. I'd started seeing Dr. Patricia Chen in January, telling myself it was just to process the family drama. But 3 sessions in, she looked at me over her glasses and said, "Jennifer, do you hear yourself? You're stalking your sister because she doesn't need you anymore." "I'm not stalking her. I'm just checking in. You're driving past her apartment. You created a fake social media account to monitor her posts. You're interrogating mutual friends. That's not checking in. That's surveillance." The word hit me like cold water. I'm worried about her. Are you? Or are you worried about what it means for you if she's fine without you? I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Because she was right. Of course she was right. I don't know who I am if I'm not taking care of her, I admitted quietly. Then maybe it's time to figure that out. Over the next few months, I worked on letting go. It was harder than I expected. Every time I had the impulse to check on Melissa, I made myself go for a walk instead. Every time I wanted to reach out with advice or help or money, I called a friend and talked through it until the impulse passed. I started volunteering at a literacy program, teaching adults to read. I joined a book club. I took a pottery class. Even though I was terrible at it and everything I made looked lopsided, I filled the space that Melissa had occupied in my life with other things, other people, other purposes. And slowly, painfully, I started to feel okay. Not great, not healed, but okay. It was April when Melissa finally reached out. A text message, simple and direct. "Can we talk?" I stared at my phone for 10 minutes before responding. Yes. We met at a coffee shop in Hawthorne, neutral territory between our 2 neighborhoods. She looked different, thinner maybe, or just more tired. But there was something else too, something harder in her expression, more defined. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup like she was cold. Of course. We sat in awkward silence for a moment, both of us waiting for the other to speak first. "I owe you an apology," she said finally. "What I said on Thanksgiving about you ruining my life, that was horrible and unfair and not true." "Okay." I was angry at myself mostly for being so dependent on you, but I took it out on you and I'm sorry. I appreciate that. And I also want to thank you for respecting my boundaries, for giving me space, for not trying to fix things or force a reconciliation. I know that must have been hard for you. It was so hard you have no idea, I thought, but I just nodded. "I've been thinking a lot about our relationship," she continued, "about the patterns we fell into, and I realized that I'm as responsible for those patterns as you are. I let you pay my rent because it was easier than facing my own failures. I let you take care of me because it meant I didn't have to grow up. I blamed you for being controlling, but I was the one who gave you control. I should have said no," I admitted. "I should have let you struggle instead of always swooping in to save you." "My therapist says I have a savior complex." Melissa smiled slightly. "My therapist says I have a victim complex. Guess we're both works in progress." We sat with that for a moment, sipping our coffee, watching the rain streak down the windows. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Sure. On Thanksgiving, you said I held the money over your head, that I made you feel guilty. Did I really do that? Because I swear I never meant to." She was quiet quiet for a long time. Not explicitly. You never said, "Remember, I pay your rent," or anything like that. But there were small things. The way you'd suggest I take on fewer classes so I'd have more time to paint. The way you'd offer to buy me things because you had the money. The way you'd make decisions about family events based on what was convenient for you because presumably you were the one with the demanding job and I was just me. Each example felt like a small cut because I remembered every one of them. And at the time, I thought I was being helpful, considerate, generous. I never thought about it that way, I said. I know you didn't. That's what made it so hard to talk about, because your intentions were good. You genuinely wanted to help, but impact matters more than intention, you know? Yeah, I'm learning that. So where do we go from here? She asked. I don't know. Where do you want to go? I want us to be sisters again. Real sisters. The kind who talk about their lives and support each other but don't make each other feel small. The kind who can disagree without one of us playing the martyr and the other playing the victim. I'd like that too. But I need you to really let go, Jen. No more driving past my apartment. No more fake social media accounts. No more checking up on me through friends. My face went hot. You knew about that. Of course I knew. You're not as subtle as you think you are. Amy told me you'd been asking about me, and I saw you drive past my place twice. Your car is pretty distinctive. I wanted to sink through the floor. I'm sorry. I know that's creepy. I was just worried. I know. But Jen, you have to trust me to take care of myself. Even if that means sometimes I fail. Even if that means sometimes I struggle. You can't protect me from life. What if you really need help? Then I'll ask for it. And I'll ask other people too, not just you. Because part of breaking this pattern is me learning that there are other people in the world who can support me. That you're not the only one. That stung more than I expected. So you don't need me at all. That's not what I said. I said I need to learn to ask for help from other people too. There's a difference. I do need you, Jen. I need my sister. I just don't need my savior. We left the coffee shop with a tentative peace. Not forgiveness exactly, and not reconciliation, but a beginning. A possibility that maybe we could build something new from the ruins of what we'd had. Over the next few months, Melissa and I talked on the phone once a week. Short conversations, nothing heavy. She told me about her students, her paintings, her terrible barista skills. I told her about work, about butter, about my pottery class disasters. We didn't talk about money, didn't talk about the past, just focused on being present with each other. In June, she invited me to her apartment for dinner. The first time I'd been inside her new place. It was tiny, just one room with a kitchenette and a bathroom, but she'd made it hers. Paintings on every wall, plants on every surface, a thrift store couch covered in colorful pillows. It's perfect, I said, and I meant it. It's $750 a month, which I can actually afford, she said with pride. $300 less than my share of a 2-bedroom if I got a roommate, but I wanted to live alone, wanted to prove I could. I'm proud of you. Thanks, that means a lot. Wait, she'd made pasta, nothing fancy, just spaghetti with marinara and a salad, but it tasted better than any meal we'd shared when I was paying for everything. Can I tell you something? She said over wine. Something I've been afraid to say? Of course. I'm happier now, like genuinely happier. Not because I don't see you or because we're not close, but because for the first time in my adult life, I'm supporting myself. I'm making my own decisions. I'm failing sometimes and figuring it out and succeeding sometimes and knowing it's because of me, not because someone saved me. That's good, Mel. That's really good. And I know that probably hurts to hear because you spent so much time and money trying to help me be happy, and it turns out what I needed was to struggle. It did hurt, but it also felt true. I'm glad you're happy, even if it means you don't need me the way you used to. I do need you, just differently. I need a sister who listens, who supports me without fixing everything, who trusts me to handle my own life. I'm working on that. It's harder than you'd think, I know, but you're doing it, and I appreciate it. In August, Melissa sold her first major painting, not to a gallery, but to a private collector who'd seen her work online and offered her $3,000 for a large canvas she'd spent 6 months on. She called me crying. Jen, someone bought my painting for real money, like enough to cover 4 months of rent money. Melissa, that's incredible. I know, and I did it myself. I marketed myself. I negotiated the price. I packaged and shipped it. All me. The pride in her voice made my chest tight. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for not offering to help. It was such a strange thing to be thanked for, but I understood it. You're welcome. That night, I realized something. I'd been so focused on whether Melissa needed me that I'd never stopped to ask if I needed her. And the answer was yes, I did need her. Not as a project or a purpose, but as a sister, as someone who knew me before I became the responsible one, the savior, the person who had it all together. She reminded me that I was more than my competence, more than my ability to fix things, more than my financial stability. She reminded me that I was human. In October, almost a year after the Thanksgiving disaster, Melissa invited me to an art show. She was displaying 6 paintings at a small gallery in the Alberta Arts District, part of a group show featuring local artists. I stood in front of her work, studying the canvases. They were different from what she'd done before, darker, more abstract, layers of color and texture that suggested depth, complexity, pain, and beauty all at once. What do you think? She asked nervously. I think they're the best work you've ever done. Really? Really? They're stunning. They're raw and honest and powerful. She smiled, and it reached her eyes in a way I hadn't seen in years. I painted them during the hardest months, when I was working 3 jobs and exhausted all the time, and angry at you and angry at myself. I just poured all of it onto canvas. Well, it worked. These are going to sell. I hope so. But even if they don't, I'm proud of them. That's new for me. Being proud of my work regardless of whether anyone else validates it. That is new. That's growth. Yeah, therapy is expensive, but apparently worth it. We laughed, and it felt easy. Natural, like maybe we'd finally found our way back to each other. Later that night, after the gallery had closed and we were walking to our cars, Melissa stopped suddenly. Jen, I need to tell you something. Okay, I'm moving to Seattle. I got offered a position at an art school there, teaching, but better pay and benefits. And it's a fresh start, a chance to build a life that's completely mine. My first instinct was panic. She's leaving. You'll lose her. You need to convince her to stay. But I took a breath and pushed past that instinct. That sounds like an amazing opportunity. You're not upset? I'm sad you'll be farther away, but I'm happy for you. This is what you've been working toward. I was so afraid you'd try to talk me out of it, or offer to help me move, or worse, offer to move to Seattle too so you could keep an eye on me. I thought about all of those things, I admitted, for about 30 seconds, and then I remembered that you're a capable adult who can make her own decisions, and that part of loving you means letting you go. She hugged me, tight and fierce. Thank you for learning, for growing, for becoming the sister I needed instead of the sister you thought I needed. Right back at you. Melissa moved to Seattle in December, 2 weeks before Christmas. I helped her pack, but only because she asked, and when she asked if I could loan her money for the security deposit, I said no. I have the money, I explained, and I want to help you, but I think you need to figure this out on your own. Apply for a loan if you need to. Ask your new employer for an advance, but don't ask me, not because I don't love you, but because I do. She looked hurt for a moment, then nodded. You're right. Thank you for saying no. You're welcome. That was really hard. She ended up getting an advance from the art school, covering her moving expenses and her deposit. She called me from her new apartment, breathless with excitement, describing the view of the Sound, and the coffee shop on her corner, and the studio space her employer was providing. I did it, Jen. I actually did it. You did. All on your own. Well, not all on my own. You paid my rent for 6 years. That gave me the breathing room to develop my skills, to build a portfolio, to become good enough that someone would hire me. So thank you for the money and for letting me figure out what to do with the opportunity you gave me. I hadn't thought about it that way, that maybe my help hadn't been wasted or resented, that maybe it had been a bridge she'd needed to cross to get where she was going. You're welcome, and I'm sorry I made it weird, made you feel small, made it about me instead of about you. We both made it weird, but we figured it out, eventually. Yeah, we did. Christmas that year was different, smaller, quieter. Melissa couldn't afford to fly home, and I couldn't afford to fly to Seattle and do Christmas with my parents too. So we FaceTimed on Christmas morning, opening presents in front of our screens. She'd sent me a painting, small, maybe 8 by 10 inches, abstract swirls of blue and gold with hints of green. It was beautiful. What is it? I asked. It's called Sisters. I painted it thinking about us, about how we're separate now but still connected, about how we had to break apart to come back together stronger. I started crying. Mel, it's perfect. I'm glad you like it. I wanted you to have something from this year, something to remember that we survived it. We did more than survive it. We grew from it. Yeah, we did. After we hung up, I put the painting on my mantle, right where I could see it every day. A reminder that love isn't always about helping. Sometimes it's about stepping back. Sometimes it's about trusting someone enough to let them struggle. Sometimes it's about being willing to change, even when change is painful. In February, I got an unexpected email. It was from Melissa's landlord in Portland, the one I'd been paying for 6 years. Miss Russo, it read, I wanted to let you know that your sister recently contacted me to ask about the payments you'd made on her behalf. She wanted to know the exact total so she could set up a payment plan to pay you back. I told her it wasn't my place to share that information without your permission. I'm reaching out to ask if you'd like me to provide her with those records. I stared at the email for a long time. $72,000. That's what she owed me if we were keeping score. $72,000. $1,000 that had caused so much pain and resentment and misunderstanding. I wrote back, "Thank you for checking with me. Please tell Melissa that the rent was a gift, not a loan. She owes me nothing. I'd appreciate it if you didn't share the total amount with her." Then I sent Melissa a text. "Your old landlord reached out. I told him the rent money was a gift. You don't owe me anything, Mel. Not money, not gratitude, not anything. We're square." She called me immediately. "Jen, I want to pay you back. I need to pay you back." "Why?" Because it's the right thing to do. Because I owe you. You don't owe me. I gave you that money freely. It was my choice. And demanding repayment now would just be another way of keeping you dependent on me, keeping you in my debt. I don't want that. But $72,000 is money I chose to spend, and I don't regret it. I regret how I made you feel about it. I regret that I didn't communicate better, but I don't regret helping my sister when she needed help. She was quiet for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Then, thank you, not just for the money, but for letting me move forward without that debt hanging over me. You're welcome. I love you, you know. Even when I was angry at you, even when I said you ruined my life, I always loved you. I love you too, Mel. Always. 2 years after that Thanksgiving, Melissa came home for the holiday. She flew in from Seattle, took a ride share from the airport, paid for everything herself. She looked good, healthy, happy, confident in a way she never had been before. We gathered at my mother's house again, the same relatives, the same table, but everything was different. When people asked Melissa about her life in Seattle, she talked about her job, her students, the commission she'd gotten to paint a mural for a nonprofit. She talked about her tiny apartment and her artist friends and the coffee shop where she wrote in the mornings before work. And when someone asked how she'd made the transition, how she'd afforded to move and start over, she said, "I worked 3 jobs and saved every penny. It was the hardest year of my life, but I did it." She didn't mention me, didn't mention the 6 years of rent I'd paid that had made it possible for her to develop her skills and build her career. And I didn't say anything either, because that wasn't my story to tell. It was hers. And in her story, she'd saved herself. Later, when we were alone in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner, she said, "Thank you for not correcting me when I said I did it myself. You did do it yourself. The last 2 years, that was all you. But the 6 years before that were different. We were different people then. That was its own chapter. This is a new one. I do think about it, you know. The money you spent, the sacrifices you made. I think about it and I'm grateful. But I also needed people to see me as capable, not as the mess who needed her sister to save her. I know, and you are capable. You proved that. We both did. You proved you could let go. That was just as hard as what I did." She was right. Letting go had been the hardest thing I'd ever done. Harder than working overtime to pay her rent. Harder than watching her struggle. Harder than admitting I'd been wrong about how to love her. But it had also been the most important thing, because in letting go of Melissa, I'd found myself. I discovered that I was more than my helpfulness, more than my competence, more than my ability to fix problems. I was a whole person with my own interests and friends and purposes that had nothing to do with saving anyone. And in being let go, Melissa had found herself too, had discovered that she was stronger than she thought, more capable than she believed, more worthy than she'd ever given herself credit for. We'd both had to lose each other to find ourselves. And then we'd found each other again, but differently, better. As I drove home that night, I thought about the deviled eggs I'd dropped 2 years ago, the moment everything had shattered, the moment I'd heard my sister say I ruined her life. At the time, it had felt like an ending, like the destruction of everything we'd built together. But it had actually been a beginning, the start of something more honest, more equal, more real, because sisters aren't supposed to be savior and saved. They're supposed to be 2 separate people who choose each other again and again despite everything. And that's what we'd become. 3 months later, I got a package in the mail. Inside was a check for $1,200 and a note in Melissa's handwriting. "Jen, this is the first installment. I know you said the rent was a gift, but I need to do this. Not because I owe you, but because I want to. Because being able to pay you back little by little proves to me that I've really made it. That I'm not that scared girl who couldn't afford rent anymore. I'm paying you back not out of debt, but out of strength. I hope you can understand the difference. Love, Mel." I looked at the check for a long time. $1,200, 1 month of rent, 1/72nd of what I'd given her. I could cash it, accept the repayment, let her prove her strength by giving back what I'd given her. Or I could return it, insist that it was a gift, maintain my position that she owed me nothing. Both options felt wrong. So I did something else. I deposited the check and then I donated $1,200 to the art school where Melissa taught, earmarked for a scholarship fund for students who couldn't afford supplies. Then I sent her a text. Check received and deposited. Thank you. But I've decided to pay it forward instead of keeping it. Every month you send me money, I'll donate it to a scholarship fund at your school. That way, we both get what we need. You get to pay me back and prove your strength, and I get to help people, which apparently I can't stop doing even when I'm trying to let go. She wrote back immediately. That's perfect. That's exactly perfect. You're still you, and I'm still me, but we figured out how to make it work. I love you. I love you too. And that, finally, felt like the end of one story and the beginning of another. Because the truth is, family is complicated. Love is complicated. Helping someone can hurt them. Letting go can save them. And sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you love is give them the space to become who they're meant to be. Even if it means becoming someone who doesn't need you anymore. Melissa doesn't need me to pay her rent. She doesn't need me to save her. She doesn't need me to swoop in and fix everything. But she does need me to be her sister, to listen, to support, to celebrate her victories and commiserate with her struggles without trying to solve everything. And I need her too, to remind me that I'm not defined by what I do for others, to challenge me to let go, to show me that love isn't about control or sacrifice or making yourself indispensable. It's about showing up, being honest, trusting each other to handle your own lives. It's about being two separate people who choose connection without dependence. It's about forgiveness, growth, and the messy, beautiful work of learning how to love each other better. And we're still learning. We probably always will be. But at least now we're learning together as equals, as sisters, not savior and saved. Just two women who share DNA and history and love, figuring out how to build something new from the broken pieces of what we used to be. And somehow, that's enough. More than enough. It's everything.